Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Jesse Bear, Abundant Living Ecuador. Sorry, I'm a couple minutes late. I'm a little bit technically challenged when it comes to these things. Let me know if you're in the chat. Hey, Robert, let me know if you're in the chat, if you can hear me. Everything looks good here. Hoping to keep this relatively short, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and also keep it pretty specific to investing in Ecuador. So if you have questions on investing, that's what I'm here to talk about. Do me a favor, hit the like. Obviously, I'll give people a minute or two to file in, but thanks, Jordan. But it looks like there's a bunch of questions here already. So I'll go ahead and jump on those in a minute and we'll get going. So if you are going to watch this later, I'm sure people are just following. Oh, it's echoing, is it? All right, let me know, guys, if that's just on his end or if that's on my end. I'll fiddle with my equipment here for half a second. Yeah, so let me know if or I'm sorry, yeah, for people who are going to watch this later, just give a little bit of background, and those that are in here now, give a little bit of background on who I am. So I was a real estate investor in Brooklyn for a number of years, sort of 2010, 11, 12, 13. In those years, I moved to Ecuador in 2013. I launched Abundant Living Ecuador, the real estate company. And then from there, I started doing development projects. So we do residential developments. We do agricultural projects as well. In New York, my business was mostly rental properties and flipping brownstones basically and speculating on neighborhoods. And I had sort of a unique model there that worked out pretty well. And then here in Ecuador, yeah, so launched Abundant Living. So I've done a lot of business going back to 2013. Started doing development projects a few years later, residential development stuff, agriculture. And that's sort of my background. So I'm not a expert in all kinds of things. I used to dabble in the markets quite a bit. I managed money for a little while. I know a little something about crypto, but my main investment expertise, at least in Ecuador, is certainly real estate, a bit on agriculture. I can talk about other things a bit, but those are going to be my areas of expertise. So I'll do the best I can on stuff that I'm not as familiar with, but I'll always clarify, if things are coming from my experience or it's just stuff that I'm aware of. Okay, let's jump into some of these questions. So cash crops versus poor yield and livestock. So obviously all of this is going to be from an investment standpoint, or excuse me, an Ecuador standpoint. Yeah, so that's an agricultural question, of course. This took me a long time to figure out. So I got here in 2013, and in the area I moved to, you would see people doing agriculture very commonly. Everybody's growing stuff, but it didn't look like people were doing all that well at it. And so for the first 2 or 3 years, maybe even more than that, but at least 2 or 3 years, I ignored agriculture, just thinking you can't really make money at it. I never looked into it in a serious way. Finally, I started, lots of people had come to me with agriculture opportunities. Finally, I really started to look at it and run numbers at it, and run numbers on it. And what I realized is that at scale, the numbers are phenomenal. And it sort of comes down in a certain way just to kind of an arbitrage play in it from a certain standpoint. So, if you're looking at farmland in the US, right, or farmland in, let's say out in California or somewhere out in the Midwest, the plains, first of all, you're dealing with the seasons, you're dealing with winter, dead time, things like that. But more importantly, your costs are so high. So not only are you spending a lot of money on the land, but your labor costs, your energy costs, your insurance costs, all your overhead is through the roof. In Ecuador, it's a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of that. And the air and soil and all those other things are much better. For example, in agriculture, there's no minimum wage for workers. So it's whatever you can work out with the workers. I'm not in favor of, paying people as little as you possibly can at all. You want to pay good money for good talent, but good money here is peanuts, right? Compared to back home. So you can grow the same crops and even better ones and at larger, healthier, year-round, larger production, all that because of the climate and because of the growing conditions that you can grow in some of these other places where agriculture is profitable, but your input costs and your overhead and your startup costs are a fraction. So there's tons of cash crops that are incredible. Not going to give away all the secrets here, but there's all kinds of things that you can grow, even not for export, right? Even just for within Ecuador. For example, just give some examples, right? Ecuador imports nearly all their grapes. They import nearly all their kiwis. They import nearly all their nuts. They import all their olives. They import all their apples. They import almost all their pears. They import, all kinds of things, right? So there's all kinds of crops that you can grow here that on relative terms are expensive in Ecuador. Blueberries, all your berries pretty much, that are expensive in Ecuador that have amazing margins again for Ecuador. And you can grow them here at an incredibly inexpensive price and do very well on your both your gross revenue and your net, per hectare of land. So there's some really amazing opportunities there on cash crops. I got my 3-year-old here with me. On cash crops, there's a lot of crops that have lower yields, right? That everybody's doing, things like corn, things like sugarcane as well. You can still make good money at it. People are making different products like that, $3,000, $8,000, $12,000 per year in sales per hectare on some of those lower yield stuff. But on the high yield stuff, spices and different specialty items that they're not growing here, organic items, things like that, you can quadruple, quintuple, even more than that, those numbers. CBD is a new industry here. So that's really an amazing opportunity right now in Ecuador. And you also asked there about livestock. Really interesting business. So I never wanted to get into the sort of animal businesses. There's something that turns me off about it, but I've looked at the numbers extensively because I've had the opportunity to get into it a number of times. The cattle business is a great one. Once you have the land, right? Obviously you need the land. Most beef in Ecuador is grass fed, right? Most cows are just out grazing. There's no such thing as grass fed beef here. It's all grass fed, right? So you need the land first. And land here is relatively inexpensive when it comes to, pasture land for agriculture and for cattle. But once you have the land, your costs essentially, you're gonna close to double your money every 12 to 14 months on buying young bulls, raising them for a year and a half, and selling them. You're usually going to get about 70, 80, 100% return on that over the course of those 14 months or whatever it is that it takes, to get them from that size to that size when you sell them for meat. So that is an interesting business for sure. Let's see, what do we got here? How's the damage due to errors in design or construction discovers? Yeah, I mean, there's shoddy construction that goes on. Just be careful who you work with. What types of loans are available for different types of investments. Yeah, I mean, there's actually flexible financing here on a lot of things. We work with the banks quite a bit on different things that we do. And in general, they're pretty flexible. They have different products where they can, you're not necessarily tied to a monthly payment if you're doing a project that, that you need 12 months or something before the first payment because you're not going to have any income. They're willing to structure things in that way. Interest rates here are fairly high. So your cost of capital is not going to be low. Most of the time you're going to pay double digits interest, on any loan that you get, including financing for different investment projects. Okay, let's see what we got here. Private lending opportunities in Ecuador, are they risky? Oh, that's a great question. We've actually kicked around the idea of launching a mortgage company aimed at foreigners because foreigners are shut out of the mortgage market here. And so I shouldn't say that. Foreigners are not shut out of the mortgage market. Foreigners are shut out of the mortgage market for the first year or two until they establish a credit history. So once they have a credit history in Ecuador, then they can get loans here. But until then, they're shut out. So for all intents and purposes, when they're first arriving, they're shut out. And it would be amazing to have financing options for foreigners, but also for all kinds of things. The cost of capital here is higher than it is back home. So you can get much higher rates here. Foreclosing is easier than it is in the States. So yeah, private lender, lots of opportunity here. And less rules, less regulations, less restrictions. That would be a really interesting business. In fact, I'd love to talk to you about that. Okay. OLX Ecuador, there's prices for 1,000. Sorry, I guess I got to read these out loud. I looked up on OLX Ecuador cars for sale. There's a price, let's say 30,000 for a car. There's a tax on top of that price. How does that work in Ecuador? Yeah, so there's not much of a tax on the transaction. There's a small fee that you pay at the notary that's negligible, maybe a few $100 transfer tax. But there's a annual tax on cars based on the value of the car and how fuel efficient it is. So it's not a huge deal usually, but if you're talking very high end cars, cars that are $80,000 and up, which are not common here, then it does get expensive, your cost of ownership annually because of the tax. I think they tax every dollar annually over, I want to say like 16. It's probably gone up. These are a few years old, but so maybe it's 20,000 now or something in value at like 4%, something like that. So the cars I own, it might cost me $3,000 in a year in taxes, and then it goes down each year. In a brand new car, nice brand new car, you might pay about $1,500, $1,800 the first year in taxes, and then it'll go down from there. Okay. Yeah, lots of crazy stuff going on in Europe for sure. It's hard to leave Canada right now. Yeah, that's definitely an issue, I know, with the restrictions and the requirements. So yeah, best of luck to you with that. That's definitely some of the reasons I came down here many years ago, is to get away from that. I'm sure things will open up here at some point. They have to, I would think. Okay, let's see, what else do we have here? You guys have projects needing silent investment? Yeah, absolutely. So we're always rolling out new projects. We're actually launching a larger development company right now to sort of have a good vehicle to move to the next level in our projects. So yeah, we absolutely do need. We are looking for investors, not super actively, but in a more active way here coming up as we roll out some of these larger projects. But there's a lot of stuff, a lot of fun investment opportunities here, and investors can do quite well. Most of the projects, I think we've only funded maybe 2 of our projects with our own capital. The rest have all been investment capital, and so yeah, we're always interested in those types of relationships. Let's see, what else do we have here? Yeah. All right. Well, keep them coming, guys. I'm gonna probably just pop right out of here if there's not too many more specifics. This is definitely a topic I enjoy, so I'm gonna try to do this. Try to do this every Friday at 5, if I can keep up with it and make the time. But yeah, I love talking investing. So if we can get a good group in here on Fridays at 5 to chat investing in Ecuador, that would be a lot of fun. And there's all kinds of opportunities. I mean, it's kind of a country. It's kind of a country. It's a virgin country, right? In a certain way, it's just an unexploited country in many ways, which makes it fun. It's probably like the U.S. was, in the 1800s or something in that way, right? Or going way back, maybe not that early, maybe the mid 1900s or early 1900s. But there's certain areas in Ecuador where there's lots of economic activity, lots of investment, lots of capital. Certainly Quito, Cuenca, Guayaquil, places even maybe like Manta a bit, and certain places where there's a lot going on. But the rest of the country, there's not a ton going on, and so it just makes for massive opportunities. There's whole sections of this country that are just unexploited at all. And so you can do all kinds of fun stuff. We like to do, all our agriculture projects, for example, are organic. When we do, when we do development projects, we're designing these beautiful communities and spaces for people to live. We're often integrating food production even into that. Um, I just discovered on this trip I'm on right now, I just discovered that there's a couple of lakes an hour or so from Manta, totally undeveloped, beautiful lakes. There's no lake culture there at all. No one's even heard of them. I've lived here 9 years. I've never heard of them. I talked to a whole bunch of Ecuadorian friends about it in the last couple of nights. They had never heard of them. That went right on my list, right, for future projects. Do some tourism stuff up there, do some residential developments. It's a beautiful place for agriculture. Land is dirt cheap. And when I say land is dirt cheap, I mean there's still beautiful unexploited areas in Ecuador where you can buy land for $1,000 to $3,000 a hectare. That's amazing agricultural land. So I mean it's when I say it's cheap, I mean it's cheap, right? There's other places that are expensive. That's sort of the way the market is here. But okay, looks like we got a bunch of more stuff rolling in. Let me take another look. Luxury development destinations. Yeah. So there's definitely a luxury development that goes on here. They're pretty much focused on a few places. The major cities, of course, Quito and Guayaquil being the two largest. Then some areas on the coast as well. Definitely Manta. There's some luxury stuff in Cuenca. Outside of that, not a ton. There's a nice, there's a luxury resort in Machala, which I think does pretty well. There's a few in the Amazon, but in general, there's not a ton of stuff going on. The entire coast, I think, is really prime for that. They're also talking about bringing the casinos back, which is interesting. Rafael Correa, who was the president 2 presidents ago, got rid of the casinos. That was a large business here in Ecuador when he was president. The current president, who's business friendly, that's the other thing. We have a very friendly political climate right now for business and entrepreneurship and capital, which is nice. Is talking about bringing the casinos back. That would certainly create a lot of opportunities, but there's tons of luxury development opportunities here, really all over. There's only 3 or 4. Let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I believe there's 5 golf courses in the entire country, right? One of the things on my list, there's this beautiful spot for a golf course in the Loja area, and a little bit warmer, drier area. Golf course residential development would be beautiful there, and it would work. So there's stuff all over the country, luxury development opportunities. But yeah, or Salinas too. There's some luxury stuff there as well in Salinas. But yeah, those are the places people are doing that currently. Yeah, the payment schedule, like for new builds, I gotta apologize, Pablo. I'm not familiar with that term. I'm sure it's something I should be familiar with, but you'd have to say that in a different way for me to know exactly what you're talking about. Best locations. Yeah, I mean, that's opinion for sure, right? So some people are looking for like, they don't want frontier markets, right? They want established, standardized, easier to, get in and out, quick projects, quick returns, standardized processes. Those are the major cities, the developed areas on the coast, and the major cities. I'm a bit of a contrarian in everything I do, so I'm always looking for that next location, that sort of untapped potential, unexploited areas. So I'm a big fan of most of the Amazonian region. I'm a big fan of some of the rural areas in the mountains. I'm a big fan of some of the inland agricultural opportunities on the coast. There's all up and down the coast. There's just these little fishing villages that, if a developer were to come in with a vision and capital and the right mindset, they could, remake the whole town into, a beautiful destination. Digital marketing agency to Ecuador. Awesome. I hope you do. How much capital is needed to potentially partner with you guys on a project? That's completely flexible. We've put projects together, just with one investor. We've done it with groups of investors. We've done it with several investors. So that's totally flexible. I want a lake. Yeah, me too. What are the services needed in the area? Wow. I mean, gosh, it's almost everything in some places. Not to say that there aren't, just to give you some examples, right? There's no Amazon.com, right, in Ecuador. There's nothing like that, right? It's still mostly a cash society. Not in the cities, again, not in the major cities, but services are lacking in many places, as far as, as far as convenience type stuff, right? So, food delivery is a new thing in Ecuador. It's only been around, a handful of years. Um, People still are not used to that. I don't know. I'd have to off the top of my head, but there's so many things, so many services. I mean, there's tens, dozens and dozens of businesses in the service, in the services businesses, that could be successful here. And it's not even that Ecuadorians don't want them. It's just that they're not super common. And then foreigners as well would be very interested in a lot of services that are just not super common here. Um, Swimmable lakes, yeah, these are like beautiful, beautiful lakes. They're artificial lakes, the ones I'm talking about. And the water's pretty warm. They're massive. They're sort of like those lakes in upstate New York, that are drinking reservoirs, but they're people boat in them and they fish in them, and they're lakes. They're really, really beautiful. Yeah, development opportunities in the Vilcabamba area. That's a great question. We've done a number of developments there. It's a hot-ish market right now. So there's a shortage in housing right now, for rentals. So there's opportunity there. There's tons of opportunity developing land. So buying larger pieces and developing it into subdivisions, building or not, that's up to you. But that's a business we're in extensively. That's a great business in Vilcabamba. That's absolutely needed, or that's a great opportunity, I should say. Subdividing land really anywhere in Ecuador is a huge win. Then it comes down, of course, to your marketing and your ability to sell it. But that's a really fun business with outsized returns. Are there services available to support absentee owners on agricultural land or rental properties? That infrastructure is not super standardized, but it's easy to set up. So it's something that we've helped a lot of clients with. It can be set up, but yeah, you'd have to set that up or work with us and we'd help you. But yeah, it's something that there's not standardized businesses per se. There may be, again, in the largest cities, there may be rental, like management companies, property management companies, but in Loja, for example, there is not. There's certainly people we can assist with that. But in general, in Ecuador, you really have to pay attention to your affairs. So if you're going to set up an agricultural project and walk away, you need to be very comfortable that you have really top-notch management in place, who are not gonna cut corners and hide numbers and all that kind of stuff. Oh, something happened here. 1 second. Development while respecting the environment should be the focus. I agree completely. We try to do things that way always. Not sure what that means. What about tiny home communities? Great idea. Great idea. That would work here. That would be very cool. I don't think anyone's really doing that. I've seen like glamping just sort of got here in the last couple of years. They're starting to do container stuff here now, but Ecuador is always pretty far behind on a lot of that stuff. All right, Mustafa, welcome, man. Be good to hopefully we meet when you're down here. How hard is it to export products? It's a little bit of a pain in the ass just to get all the licenses and deal with the bureaucracy, but totally doable. Not a huge deal. Something absolutely can be done without too much headache. Yeah. Yeah, why do people want to move to Ecuador for its natural beauty, yet they want to tear down trees, which is home for many birds? I mean, we do both, right? So we cut some trees and we plant trees, and we create forest, and we do everything in between. So I don't know if people are doing that. I know a lot of people in Ecuador do that for cattle, certainly, but we try not to damage the environment at all. On a new building like Ryan's, how much is paid during the build, prepay for supplies, progress payments? That's what you were asking. Yep. Every 10% of completion, withholding. Yeah. So every builder has their own structure. But I think the way Ryan's doing it, for example, he's just using basically what they call a maestro, but he's using a foreigner, a friend of his, Bob. Those guys, you just kind of go, which is typical here, but not the only way to do it. I'll get into the other options in a minute. Those guys just go step by step, right? So there's no deposit, there's no down payment, there's no anything. You don't have any costs beyond his salary. So basically, you're paying when you need to buy the supplies, you're paying for them. When you need to pay the workers at the end of the week, you're paying it. When you need to pay, what we would refer to as the general contractor, but in this case, they're really not. They're just sort of overseeing things. You're paying him. That's how Ryan's doing it. If you're hiring, an architect builder, right, then that's going to be a little different. Usually, you're putting about 50% down to get started. Then you're paying, another 25% or so at a certain mark in time. And then yes, normally the last 10% is withheld until keys are delivered and so on and so forth. But that's totally negotiable, and it just depends on the builder that you're using. I've been here in Cuenca on a visit for a week, returning to California tomorrow. I can see how living here can work. This is my first time to Ecuador. I'd like to return to explore more. Yeah, Cuenca's cool. I mean, I like Cuenca. It's cold. I don't like the climate there at all. But it's a nice city. It's safe, nice mountain city. There's nice cultural stuff, good restaurants. It's an interesting place, Cuenca, for sure. Suffering from the pollution here in the U.S. I'm considering moving there for health reasons. How quick did you feel a difference in your health after you arrived? Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for health stuff, Ecuador is a great place. I would probably recommend Vilcabamba specifically just because there's so many natural health practitioners there. So and they're really inexpensive and they're world class. So, you can really make some progress on your health, I think, pretty quickly in Vilcabamba. I was in pretty good health, when I got here. So I'm probably not the person to ask, but I've noticed with a lot of clients that they get healthy fast in Vilcabamba. I've seen a lot of people come with, cholesterol issues or weight issues or allergies or different things. And then I see them, a month later, 3 months later, 6 months later, and they look like a whole different person. And I talk to them. Often they become friends, have become friends over the years. And they just say, I can't believe it. I'm off this medication. I'm off that medication. I'm feeling great. My food allergies went away. These are fairly common stories in Vilcabamba. But then if you want to be more active about it, there's a lot of natural health practitioners there as well. Let's see. Is the agriculture you're involved in for export or local consumption? Yeah, so interestingly enough, we haven't gotten into export yet. I'm sure we will at some point. But the market here is great. You can get in all kinds of niche products in agriculture, and doesn't even have to be super niche, but and make great money here, just selling locally. But yeah, the margins go up for agriculture, but there's definitely an extra level of bureaucracy and standards and certifications and all kinds of stuff you have to go through. Not a big deal. We know how to do all that stuff, but up till now we've been just selling everything here in Ecuador. Okay. Yeah, we have a Facebook, or do you mean me personally? Yeah, you might be able to find me on Facebook, Jesse Bayer, Bayer, Jesse. There's a company Facebook page, but I think that's mostly dedicated for Spanish. Is there an industry for building if you want to email me, Robert, we can touch base. It's Jesse, Jesse at abecuador.com. Is there an industry for building inspections? No, there is not. Again, maybe in the largest cities. I don't do business there, so I don't really know, but it's possible. But no, in the markets I work in, not at all. I assume not, or that it's rare, but I have 10 years of experience. And yeah, that would be interesting, Mike. I would love to be able to offer clients that service because a lot of people ask me, and I have a way to do that for them, but it's pretty informal, right? I'm calling a builder or an engineer. He's coming out. He's looking at the property and doing a little report, but it's not super standardized. I'd love to be able to offer that in a more standardized way, but you're not going to do great at those kinds of things financially here because labor is so inexpensive. When investing with you, does the money go into U.S. Corp or Ecuadorian? Yeah, we've structured different things in different ways, but there's always an Ecuadorian entity. We've definitely had situations where there was a U.S. entity as well, but there's always an Ecuadorian entity as also. What is the best way to reach out to you or your team? Yeah, again, Jesse at abecuador.com, Jesse at abecuador.com would be the best. Okay, cool, guys. I think I'm gonna jump out of here. I was hoping to keep this to 20 or 30 minutes on Friday nights. So good chat. I enjoyed it. Thank you for making it lively, for all the questions. Please give a like if you enjoyed this. appreciate again the chat and all that. Really good to connect with you guys, and hope to connect more in the future. Happy Good Friday. Have a great evening, great weekend, great Easter, Passover time. I know a lot of people are celebrating, and we'll be back with you guys soon. Have a great weekend.